You are standing in a valley, and you already know everyone else alive. All of them. Every human being on the entire planet fits inside about 1,200 people. Not your town, not your country, not even a full stadium, your entire species, standing right in front of you. The ground is cold under your feet. The air is thin and dry. One bad winter, one drought that runs too long, one disease moving through camp. That is all it would take to end the human story before it ever really begins. We almost didn't make it, and the proof is sitting inside every cell in your body, right now. Here's the version of human origins most of us grew up with. Humans showed up in Africa, got smarter, spread out, and slowly took over the world. A clean, steady climb from ape to astronaut. Fossils here, fossils there, Lucy in one layer of rock, Homo erectus walking out of Africa in another. One small step after another, in order, like pages in a textbook. Stone tools got sharper, fire got tamed, groups pushed out into Europe and Asia wave after wave. Every chapter pointed the same direction, up and out. For a long time, that was the whole story, and it sounded safe. But here's what's fascinating. Line up human DNA next to any other ape, and something looks wrong. Two chimpanzees living in neighboring forests carry more genetic difference between them than two humans standing on opposite sides of the planet. We are almost identical to each other, cell for cell. Out of every great ape alive today, we are the least genetically diverse by far. That should not be true. Not for a species that supposedly thrived and spread, unbothered, for millions of years. This shouldn't be here, but it is. In 2023, a team of geneticists built a new tool to dig into that mystery. It's called FitCol. And here's what's fascinating about how it works. It reads backward through more than 3,000 living human genomes, almost like counting rings inside a tree trunk, tracking our population size rising and falling across hundreds of thousands of years using nothing but DNA sitting in people alive today. And buried in there, they found a scar. Somewhere between 930,000 and 813,000 years ago, our ancestors collapsed from around 100,000 people down to about 1,280 breeding adults. That is not a village. That is fewer people than plenty of high schools have on a random Tuesday. And it did not last one hard decade. It lasted 117,000 years. Picture that life for a second. Small bands scattered across Africa, a world turning colder and drier than the one before it. Grass fields drying into dust, rivers running thin and slow. The big animals your group depends on thinning out too, wandering off into places you cannot follow. Some mornings meant walking for hours just to find a herd worth chasing and coming back with nothing. Other mornings meant everything going right at once. Meat, water, a place to rest, and nobody in camp quite believing their luck. Picture the inside of a shelter at night. Wind pulling at the walls, the sound of it never quite stopping. The smell of damp earth and coal ash. Not quite enough food to go around, and somebody quietly doing the math on who eats first tonight. Gray, slick meat scraped off a bone that was already picked clean once. A child coughing in the dark, and nobody sure yet if that cough means nothing or means everything. That was not one rough season. That was daily life, for 4,000 generations in a row. And somehow they didn't just survive it. They kept having children. They kept passing down exactly where to find water in a land that kept hiding it. Every single ancestor in your family line, stretching back through every one of those generations, made it through this window alive. One wrong decision, one bad winter. Any of it erases you before you exist. But here you are watching this. But here's where it gets stranger. That same brutal stretch of time lines up with something else. A rewrite happening quietly inside our actual DNA. Every other great ape alive carries the same two chromosomes as two separate pieces. Somewhere in this exact window, our ancestors' version of those two pieces fused end to end into one, like two shoelaces tied together into a single, long lace. That fused chromosome is sitting inside you right now. It's called chromosome 2, and it's one of the clearest physical differences between a human skeleton and a chimpanzee skeleton. Scientists think the population crash and that genetic fusion are not just sitting side by accident. They think this tiny, freezing, starving population may be the exact moment a new branch quietly split off the tree. The shared ancestor of us, Neanderthals, and Denisovans, all three. Tracing back to this same narrow window of almost nothing. Some estimates put that three-way split somewhere between 765,000 and 550,000 years ago. Close enough to this same crisis that it's hard to call it a coincidence. We are not just the survivors of that bottleneck, we might be the product of it. The near-extinction may be the reason you exist as this specific kind of human instead of some other version of us that never had to squeeze through that gap at all. That's the actual weight of this story. It's not only that ancient humans almost went extinct, it's that everything about you traces back to it. The DNA in your body, the fused chromosome inside every one of your cells, The fact that you and a total stranger on the far side of the planet are almost genetic twins by comparison to any other ape. It's part of why a donated organ or a bone marrow match between two strangers is even possible in humans, in a way it almost never would be between two wild chimpanzees from different troops. All of it comes from roughly 1,280 people who refuse to stop having children in the worst stretch our species has ever lived through. If a story like that is worth another 5 minutes, there's a video coming about what daily survival actually looked like once the Ice Age hit, with nothing but stone and fire standing between our ancestors and the cold. Hit subscribe first, so this channel doesn't disappear into your feed. Now, one more thing before you go. Not every scientist agrees on how close we really came to vanishing. Some argue that breeding population isn't the same thing as total population, and more people may have existed even during the bottleneck. Just fewer of them managed to pass on children who survived. The fossil record from that window is strangely thin too, but a handful of sites keep turning up human remains right in the middle of this supposed crisis. That means either the crash was not this brutal everywhere on Earth, or we are still missing most of the story. Either way, even the scientists who doubt the numbers agree on one thing. Something enormous happened to our species in that window. The disagreement is not about whether it happened, it's about how close the ending actually was. For 117,000 years, humanity ran on an edge this thin. We don't know their names. We'll never know their faces. But we are the ending they were fighting for, whether they knew it or not.